All right, let's talk about this. Mistakes were made. You've heard it a million times, right? It's the classic non-apology. But what's really fascinating is the powerful psychological engine running underneath that phrase, an engine that, protects us, divides us, and sometimes leads us straight into disaster. I mean, really think about it for a second. Why are those three little words, I was wrong, so incredibly hard to say out loud? It feels like it's about more than just admitting a simple error. It feels like a threat to who we are. And it turns out there's a very real scientific reason for that feeling.
And here it is, the big one, cognitive dissonance. It's that awful, gut-wrenching feeling, that mental static you get when you do something that just doesn't line up with who you think you are. It is a state of tension so uncomfortable, our brains will do pretty much anything to make it stop.
So why is this dissonance thing so powerful? Well, it's because it's not just about being right on some random fact. It's about protecting our core self-concept. The second an action threatens our belief that we are, at our core, a smart, good, and competent person, our brain's defense mechanisms just kick into overdrive. This is such a great way to visualize how we get from a tiny mistake to a massive, unbridgeable divide. It's called the pyramid of decision. Picture this. Two people start at the very top, basically on the same page. But then they each make one small choice, say to cheat on a test or not, and they justify it. With that first justification, they each take one small step down on opposite sides of the pyramid. And with every new justification, that distance grows until they're way down at the bottom, miles apart, completely convinced they're right and the other person is a fool. So let's see how this actually plays out in the real world, starting with the place it can hurt the most, our relationships. I think we've all seen how small disagreement can somehow blow up into a huge battle. And the reason, so often, isn't the disagreement itself. It's the endless justifications that come after. Okay, look at this. This right here is a total game changer. Happy couples, they give each other the benefit of the doubt. So if a partner snaps, they'll think, oh, they must have had a really stressful day. But unhappy couples? Nope. They chalk up that exact same snap to a deep, permanent character flaw. See, they're just a selfish person. It's a way of thinking that just poisons everything. And this is the absolute heart of the matter. It is not the arguments that kill a relationship. It's the refusal to see our own part in it, that relentless need to justify our actions and just blame our partner's character. That is the true assassin of love. And this self-justification kicks off a totally predictable downward spiral. You come up with a negative theory, my partner is lazy, and then your brain actively looks for evidence to prove you right. That's confirmation bias. Pretty soon, you're rewriting your entire past together. I thought he was ambitious, but I guess I was wrong all along. And then anger is replaced by contempt, which psychologists will tell you is one of the single biggest predictors of divorce. Okay, so we've seen this dynamic in our homes. Now let's scale it up to our institutions, where, believe me, the stakes can be life and death. The exact same psychological gears are turning, but the consequences of being wrong are just catastrophic. This is the top of the pyramid for the justice system. The moment an investigator becomes convinced that a suspect is guilty, that's it. Dissonance and confirmation bias just take the wheel. The goal is no longer about finding the truth. It's about proving their first hunch was the right one. And this tunnel vision has really serious effects. Evidence that contradicts the theory gets ignored. Interrogators use tricky techniques because, in their minds, they have a core belief that only a guilty person would ever confess. And what's really shocking is that when DNA evidence later proves someone is innocent, it can be brushed off as a mere technicality, just to avoid that crushing dissonance of admitting, I made a terrible, life-altering mistake. This quote, it's just chilling, isn't it? It is a perfect, unbreakable circle of self-justification. This isn't about being evil. It's about a deep-seated belief in your own infallibility, a belief so strong it makes it nearly impossible to ever correct yourself. And the potential scale of this problem is just staggering. Researchers estimate that if all prison sentences got the same level of scrutiny as death row cases, we might find something like 28,500 wrongful convictions. Now that is a number that creates a ton of dissonance for anyone who wants to believe our system is basically perfect. So let's zoom out one last time to the biggest level of all, nations and global conflicts. It's the same pyramid of decision, the same burning need to justify, the same blame game. But now it's being played out on the world's stage, fueling these endless cycles of violence. This is the question, isn't it? It's at the heart of almost every single international conflict. And the answer, of course, totally depends on who you ask and where they decide the story actually begins. Each side has their own narrative that paints them as the victim who is just responding to the other side's aggression. Let's take the Iran hostage crisis as an example. For most Americans back in 1979, the story started in November with what looked like a totally unprovoked attack on their embassy. But for many Iranians, the story started decades earlier, back in 1953, with a US-backed coup that got rid of their democratically elected leader. So depending on your starting point, who the bad guy is and who the victim is completely flips. And this brings us to a really terrifying psychological loop. To reduce the dissonance of hurting other people, we convince ourselves they deserved it, that they're evil or subhuman or pests. And this dehumanization makes it easier to inflict even more harm, which then needs even more justification. It's a vicious, escalating cycle. So, after all of this, is there a way out? Is there some kind of antidote to this destructive cycle of justifying everything we do? Well, yes, but it's not easy. It means we have to do the one thing our brain is wired to fight against: admit we made a mistake. Here's this moment of just stunning clarity, and from a place you might not expect it. After a military disaster that cost thousands and thousands of lives, General Lee didn't blame his team, he didn't blame the enemy, he didn't blame bad luck. He just took full, total responsibility. It is a powerful and honestly a very rare example of someone owning a catastrophic mistake. And this is the point we really need to get. Admitting you were wrong is not weakness. It is the absolute essential first step to learning anything. It's how we build trust with other people, and it is the only way to short-circuit those cycles of blame that destroy our relationships, our institutions, and even our nations. In the end, this is really what it all comes down to. True character isn't about never making a mistake, because that's impossible for any of us. It's about what we do in that moment of uncomfortable, dissonant truth when we realize we've messed up. Do we justify or do we learn? To explore these ideas in greater depth, including examples we couldn't fit here, see the audio deep dive linked in the description below.